Hello, everybody, and welcome to the True Love Talk channel. Here we want to learn about human sexuality and love based on the teachings that Pope John Paul II left in the Theology of the Body. I am Elisa, and today in this video, we're going to continue the topic of chastity in other forms of relationships, but emphasizing on relationships amongst peers. So let's begin. Okay, so to understand what chastity amongst peers or in relationships amongst peers entails, it's very useful to understand the concept of original solitude that Pope John Paul II described in the Theology of the Body. Now, when Pope John Paul II talks about original something like original solitude or original innocence, this is something that every human being shares and has, or a process that they have to go through by the mere fact of being human. Everybody, regardless of the time and space, or the time of history, or the place of birth, they have to go through. So, the idea of original solitude is developed by Pope John Paul II by reading the second chapter of Genesis. Let's remember that Genesis, the first two chapters of Genesis are the stories of creation, but on the first chapter, man is created in one movement. That means that God created man in his image, man and woman, he created it. Boom, both of them at the same time. But on the second chapter, on the second story, they tell man is created in two movements. First, God creates Adam, he creates the male, right? And he parades in front of him all of the animals because he's going to rule over animals. So he has to name them. And when Adam is naming all the animals, he realizes that he himself is a body amongst bodies. That means that he shares a body as a material part of his essence that can, without which he cannot exist, just like animals. But he realizes that even though his body can be very similar to some animals, he's still completely different to all of them because he has a spirit while animals don't. And he's a person. Because he's a person, he can love God, right? And answer to that love that God has for him. Now, let's remember that we human beings are not the only people in existence. Angels are people as well because they have spirits as well. And so they can love God as well. But that is something that man shares with the angels. But angels don't have the body that man shares with the animals. And that makes man, this is what Pope John Paul II tells us, it makes man the hinge that, or the union that what unifies heaven and earth, because earth is the material part of creation. Anything that takes up space, takes up takes up space. And heaven is the spiritual part of creation, right? So men, human beings, as spiritual beings, they are heavenly, but as corporeal beings, they are also earthly, and so heaven and earth are bonded, right? And that gives man a place in creation that no other creature has. And that is when man realizes, I am alone. No, that's the original solitude. And in the solitude, and even God realizes that this solitude is not good. And he says, it's not good that the man is alone. So he sleeps them. He sleeps Adam and takes his rib and then creates Eve. And when the Adam sees Eve for the first time, what he says is, this one is flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone, right? And with this sentence, what he's saying is, she is a human being just like me. She is this person that has, or this creature that has this same place in creation as I do, right? She's human, and because she's human, she has the same value as I do, the same dignity as I do. And the most telling part of this sentence is that he talks about it in terms of flesh and bone, of the body. And the body is what makes men and women different. That thing that makes the difference between men and women so evident. But even though he sees the difference in Eve, he also sees that she is just like him, right? And she has the same dignity that he has. And this means this is something that we all have, that happens to all of us, right? This solitude. We don't understand who we are until we're in front of the other person. Masculinity does not make sense until femininity is there. Of course, a woman is a woman regardless of how many women are around her, right? She is what she is, and that is unchangeable. But she understands what she is, no? Her femininity, when masculinity is there, because, hey, you're a different way of being human, and that tells me who I am and how I am complementary to you, right? So being in front of somebody else, a peer, and by peer I mean a person that is in the same level as one is, like happens between spouses or amongst siblings, co-workers, cousins, friends, right, classmates, all these people that are on the same level, right? We see that the other person is like me. So I understand humanity because I understand what is being human. And we understand that they have the same value and the same dignity. But we also understand ourselves and our humanity because we understand that, hey, the way I am human is different from the way that you are human, that there are different ways of being human. And that I don't have that other way of being human, and not only because I haven't developed it, because sometimes it is I haven't developed that same thing that you have, because I have that same characteristic, only I hadn't noticed it, and I have not made it happen. But there are other times when we say that characteristic that you have is something that I don't have and I will never have, right? That is something that is not me, not part of myself. And you have some things, I have some things that you don't have either, right? And that you can never have regardless of how much you develop them, how much you develop yourself, because it's not within yourself to have. By being in front of another person, I can realize who I am and that I am unique and irreplaceable and that nobody else is exactly like me, even though they can be very similar. It also shows me that I am finite and that because I don't have all, because I am not everything that humanity can be, right? I am not all that what human beings can be. There are different ways of being human, and I only have one of those ways, right? I am going to need the rest, all of those other ways of being human, and that means that I need the other person. But I also realize that those other people don't have my personal way of being human, and they also need me. And this will eventually evolve the relationship from need to actual love. Because let's remember that love has three stages, right? First of all, attraction, which is understanding how good the other person is. So it's great that you're different from me because look of all the awesome things that you have that I don't, right? Then desire, I want those things in my life. So far, we're still on the needing part, but then we can reach the part of the goodwill, right? Of I love your difference and I don't need to have it, but I do admire it. And you make part of my life to a point that your happiness is my happiness, right? And your well being becomes my well being. So I truly love you and appreciate you for yourself, regardless of how similar or different you are from me. And that is the essential part of chastity amongst peers. It's about knowing and understanding that we are all finite, we all depend upon each other, that we're independent and that we need to be responsible, but that this has value. Remember what I told you when we were talking about chastity with God, about how you can only love your neighbor when you love yourself, because only when you can see the value in your own finitude, in your own incompleteness, that you can see the value in someone who is also finite and incomplete themselves, right? So that's the first part of chastity in other kind of relationships. And this is today's topic. So on our next video, we're going to see the other part of chastity in other relationships, namely relationships which are which have an element of authority, when somebody is above somebody else for any reason. Okay. So I'm very glad to see that you decided to stay until the end of the video. If you have any question or any comment, please write it in the comment section below. I'll try to answer it as soon as possible. And well, see you in the next video. Have a nice day. Lots of blessings for everybody. Bye.